Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the SimplyTrade Roundup. And today we are as a whole, which means that we have all of the SimplyTrade hosts, news hosts on the pod. Hi, Lalo. Good morning. Welcome back from your little journey in Europe. How great. I hope you had so much fun.
Yeah, we did. It was a lot of fun. Lots of different, whole mess of different cities that we visited. So yes, thank you so much.
Lovely. Hi, Andy. How are you doing?
Good morning. I'm doing great, actually. So
that's awesome. Yeah, I'm glad to have all of us back together because we're going to talk on some really important issues. So if you are very up to date with what we're releasing, then yesterday you would have seen an episode go out, which was talking about the ports. We talked with Eric Hargreaves and Renee Cucurelli. We kind of talked about the economic impacts and kind of supply chain impacts of the port strike. But today we woke up and the whole world flipped. So this is crazy. I had to update the news this morning and kind of added a little thing in there if you read our newsletter, just because the Dock Workers Union is going to suspend the strike until January 15th to allow time to negotiate the new contract. But I want to talk a little bit more about this. So maybe we can enhance both. We have an article that also goes hand in hand with that. But let's see, like, if right now the new update is that the strike is suspended until January 15th, which means that the 36 hubs are open, ? You guys will tell me that. And then what will this look like? So if they're coming to an agreement, will this strike not be happening? And what if they don't come to an agreement? What are we supposed to expect, or what can companies do at this point to kind of be proactive in this situation?
The major part of their issue, why they suspended the strike, is they got a 69% increase in their wages over the next few years. I think that is just a travesty, but okay, we'll talk about that in a second. The other half of things that are still to be dealt with will be looked at in January. So they have between now and January to come to a full labor contract agreement. So to your point, I will say this, is that it's good that they've suspended it because the damage to the U.S. economy has been already felt. I think the longshoremen union here is completely unreasonable, but who in their right mind anywhere gets almost a 70% increase in raise? They can argue it. They can do whatever they want. They just suck eggs as far as I'm concerned. As far as this goes, folks, this means that the cost to run in and out of these Gulf and Eastern ports is going to significantly increase.
So yeah, in that instance, what I was seeing is, I mean, again, I was out of the country, but I was still trying to keep up with the news, and in fact, flying in last night, or early this morning, actually, I sent Anik an update. I told her, Anik, we need to update our news because the situation has changed, and so. Obviously, being out there, nobody's really even talking about that. I mean, I guess being in a tourist area, I mean, I wasn't really surrounded by business or anything like that, other than tourism and commerce and stuff like that. But I kept on trying to keep up with it, and I was actually surprised that they came to a tentative agreement, at least a tentative agreement this quickly, because I could have. I didn't imagine that we would even have an update for that, for this news for today, only because it was so fresh. And we did do that breaking news update on Thursday because it was so fresh. It was just a day old. And so we had to just quickly publish that. And the team back home did a great job at putting that together. Literally in 1 hour. I think that's more or less what had happened. But anyway, well, thanks for doing that, Anik, and putting together a panel.
I mean, I was talking to the team and, everyone. I mean, Lala was the one kind of was like, hey, can we get this out? And the team, we were talking about this. We're like, we need to do this like more often, when anything has happened, especially in the trade world, you don't know, there might be like something that goes, I mean, some things take forever, but other things might be, from one day to the next. And how can we get this out as soon as possible for our listeners to know, to get an intel on what's happening. But yeah, anyways.
Yeah, that was good. So, but I mean, with Andy's comments, it makes sense, and I totally agree that although it was only a day or a couple of days, it was short term. Let's just say, it people are saying, oh, thank goodness we avoided any issues or anything. But I mean, what everybody needs to see is that just the threat of a strike totally disrupted quite a few things. I mean, it disrupted a whole mess of different supply chains. And as we recall, the bulk rate in the East Coast and Gulf Coast was going down only because there was a lot of movement of product to the West Coast, to the West ports, because there was anticipation that there was going to be a strike. And because of that, now we have the East that I mean, obviously they went on strike, but it totally disrupted all those supply chains. Now people or companies that imported through the West Coast are going to have to ship their products completely cross country all the way to the East Coast to fulfill orders in that part of the country, or obviously any part of the country that they had not planned on. But again, it's good that at least there's a tentative agreement. I'm with Andy in that I don't think we've heard the last of this. In fact, I seriously doubt we've heard the last of it. Andy and I seem to be on the same page in the sense that it just doesn't happen this quickly. I think the last strike was resolved in 10 days prior to this one, and this having been resolved, to me there's no there's no definite resolution. It's a temporary. It's like when the government passes a budget. They don't really pass a budget. It's temporary. A temporary resolution to keep us going and keeping the government open until they do pass a balanced budget. So the same thing here. So
I guess we'll get back to it maybe January 15th. We'll see. Maybe
no, I'm
before
sure
that,
we'll hear.
right?
But
Before
I'm
that?
sure I was
Yeah.
going to say before that. I'm sure we're gonna
Okay.
end up talking about that.
Yeah.
Before that.
So the next one is this next article is pretty interesting. Not as interesting as our last one, so you definitely have to keep listening. But this is, first off, we have a forced labor class coming up in it would be tomorrow if you're listening to this episode. If you are listening to this episode right now, go sign up. Pause this podcast, go sign up, and then come back. I mean, seriously, you get your money worth. You will know everything you need to know about forced labor and what to do. So go ahead and do that. But
so if you're listening, let me be more clear. If you're listening on October 7th, if you're listening before October 8th, stop the podcast and then go and register, because the training is on October 8th.
Exactly. Sorry about this. Yeah, the episode comes out October 7th. I'm assuming you're listening right as it gets out, people. Okay.
Of course. Everybody does. They can't
We do
wait.
get a lot of them.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah, you see that. Yeah, exactly.
Let me move in. So this one is understanding. So there will be a no funds for forced labor act, or it is proposed. So they have proposed a bill that seeks to block U.S. funding for projects linked to forced labor, particularly addressing risk in regions like Xinjiang, China. Yeah, it's a hard one. So basically, this act requires a vetting process for projects to mitigate forced labor risks and demands transparency through Treasury reports on approved projects at international financial institutions. I mean, I don't have anything negative to say, but also I'm like, on paper, this sounds really great. What's behind the scenes? Like, how do you guys feel about this proposed bill, or what does it mean for companies? Especially, what does it mean for companies that are currently, getting the funding, but are on the side of, under investigation, or What does it look like?
Well, yeah, it's just you know what this comes down to. It's a bill. It hasn't been passed yet. Basically, it's putting more teeth into the situation. So I can tell you that as a whole, it puts more emphasis on vetting your suppliers for your products and things of that nature. I mean, what do you think there, Lalo? I mean, right now it's not law. There's that's a law in the Senate that's being proposed, or a bill in the Senate. The House has got the same thing, similar. So that's got to be reconciled. So it'll be quite a while before a bill is able to go to the president's desk. But if that's said, it's just putting more, I guess, emphasis on making sure that you vet your suppliers and things to avoid forced labor.
The interesting thing is that, and which is really good and refreshing to see this, because the bill was introduced by in the Senate. So there's a similar bill also in the House, but right now in the Senate there is the bill. The bill that we're talking about right now specifically is was introduced by Senator Marco Rubio, Republican, of course, and then another senator, Jeff. It's co-sponsored by Jeff Merkley, who's also in the Senate, but he's a Democrat from Oregon. The similar bill is introduced, or in the House, there's a group of sponsors in this. There's like 6 or 7 of them, and they're all over the place. You know, we got Republicans and Democrats as well. So again, the good news is it's refreshing to see that there is some backing, and of course, understanding between both parties on how this issue does need to somehow be addressed. One of the things that I did see, as I was traveling, you do see we went to so many different ports. We were on a cruise ship, but we went to a bunch of different ports. Sometimes when you land on a port, you almost tend to land like on the kind of like the lower income, let's call it, area of the port, while they bus you off to, like the nice touristy areas, or you make your way into the city or something. And you I kind of like to observe and see stuff like that. That happened as well, back when I had gone to other ports, like in the Caribbean and stuff. And you can see that it's hard to see or believe that, or understand how some of these people are not undergoing some form of forced labor. I mean, there's no way that they would voluntarily do whatever it is that they're doing, and you kind of feel for that, and when you see it firsthand. Um, like I said, I'm kind of just interjecting, like that it's good that this is getting done, and that's being addressed more on the forced labor. The bill sounds really interesting because it's pretty much just restricting funds or any financing for projects that seem to be or have some kind of involvement in forced labor. But this expands beyond just for the Uyghur region. It pretty much involves just about anything having to do with forced labor. So they're not restricting it to just Uyghur, like the UFLPA. It's just like across the board. So again, you hear about forced labor in other countries and other regions. This bill aims to address any financing that might take place I mean, like financing even down to like just the transportation of these products. It doesn't matter at what point or how you're involved in the process. Sometimes even clueless. I mean, a carrier just picks up a shipment because they were contracted to move that. They don't know how it's manufactured, but if there is financing behind that, then this bill also covers things like that. Anyway, it's just across the board, and it's really good to see. So in other words, it's just something that as trade professionals we should take a look at and make sure that if you're counting on finance, for example, for projects, all of a sudden they don't finance it because of this, and then you'll know why. It's just, I guess, more vetting that you need to do. So
All right. Well, I guess this was a pretty straightforward thing, so hopefully that goes through. And it probably is going to take a little bit of time, but once it gets here, that'll be good. To get some control in that area. Anywho, getting to a little bit of a fun article that we found, or Lalo actually sent me the TikTok. I know you guys are going to think, oh, I'm going to turn this off, TikTok. But guys,
Well,
listen.
let me tell you, Anik, it was my daughter that sent it to
Send
us,
it to
and she
you.
was yes, we were
Okay. I did not see it on
not that
my
makes sense.
TikTok. I did
Yeah,
not see it on my TikTok. It has to be in your algorithm, and I'm going to put away my phone, but I don't want my phone to hear this because it's going to give me now all the Crumbl cookie videos. I already know. I have to talk about it once, and there it is, which sometimes it's really cool, but other times I'm like, no, I don't want this on my view page. Anywho, so get this. You have you ever tried Crumbl cookies? I mean, if any of you have, I haven't, but I've heard it's really good. They have new cookies every week. They're warm, they're big, they're so good. Okay, can't imagine during this time, right? During the fall time. Anywho, imagine this. So someone is going to America or importing these cookies to their own country. In this case, it was Australia. They started a kind of a pop-up shop that has kind of the same marketing scheme as the Crumbl cookie. But they did not, they looked at the trademark and tried to get around. So they made it look like it was the same logo, but it had differences to where they're not being trademarked, though they already found a trademark. I mean, people are just not that articulate, I feel like. So then they had a little pop-up shop, and they had everyone got in line and bought their cookies, and they were like, they taste exactly like Crumbl cookies, and they look like Crumbl cookies because the whole logo is on there.
yeah,
So
they didn't really change too much. They just
no, they did not. I mean, they did not change anything. I'm like, this looks like the exact logo. So there was actually a trademark issue found. But anyways, that's not the important part here. So they imported, which we're talking a lot about importing here, right? So this word should stick out to you guys. They imported these cookies and claimed that they went through customs, they did everything, and they're legal to, they're legally able to have those cookies in that country. They even gave a statement and said, we followed all legal procedures, declaring the cookies as commercial goods and obtaining the necessary approvals from Australian customs, which is crazy because so if you're importing food or drinks, these products are allowed into Australia if, one, they are for personal consumption, two, they're fully cooked, shelf stable, and any fillings or toppings are cooked with the cake. So first of all, they were not for personal consumption because they were selling them, which is already wrong. But why would they go through custom? Why would they be able to get through customs then? Secondly, how do you keep cookies like in good form, fresh? Like, so that's kind of scary. But now I'm questioning. So if and we don't want to talk much about this case, but for anyone doing this, I'm sure this happens a lot around the world. But how can we, I don't even know how to ask the question, but how can we get around this, or how can we stop this from happening, or how hard it is?
Yeah, well, and that's why this is basically an infringement on, I think, Lila, you said it earlier, intellectual property rights. It's basically taken, but in this case, it's even taken it further. Is they actually purchased the brand or purchased the product, excuse me, and then marketed that same product when they're not authorized. So they're claiming that they cleared it through customs. It sounds like, without actually seeing it, but it sounds like they made a false declaration to customs. That's number one. Number two, it's not for personal use. They obviously started selling it, so there's that's on that issue there.
You should have read the
Hey,
customs first before you even got
well,
it through customs.
well, even aside from that, is that it's they saw an opportunity. They set up a pop up shop, and obviously it's very popular because they were selling like hotcakes. But as we would say, but and they were actually marketing it as Crumbl. So yeah, here we are in Sydney, so everybody comes and all that. And now the issue is the folks in doing this, they're backpedaling. So, you've got another thing is that Nike, for example, is probably one of the, it's a very recognizable brand around the world, but they are just extremely aggressive in defending their brand.
Which you have
and
to,
so,
I guess. Yeah, you have to.
And so that's what they do. Another one is Rolex watches. Believe it or not, Rolex is another company that is extremely aggressive in protecting and their brand.
Sorry to say that, but they, in their bio, which is basically the little description of the TikTok that they have, it says not endorsed by Crumbl, just fans importing. Like, I feel like they're describing their two mess ups there. Like, they're describing first, not endorsed by Crumbl, but looks exactly like Crumbl. Here we go. Like, we're basically being trademarked, and then just fans importing. Okay, you're importing something that you're not allowed to sell. So I don't know why they would put that even in their description or anything, but that's just funny to me. Like, and how do you think people are not going to notice? I don't know.
No, it was probably not early 2000s. It was probably like early 2010s, like in and around that area. I'll Google it here while I'm talking. But there was a case where there was a company in Canada that popped up, not a company, a store, an actual store. And I believe it was in Vancouver, called Pirate Joe's. And even their name, Pirate Joe's, please. Basically, what the owner of that store was doing is he was going across the border in the U.S. and buying huge bulk orders of Trader Joe's stuff, and he was physically and literally importing that into Canada and selling them in his store called Pirate Joe's.
People are funny. Like, what? Well, how do you not read any rules?
Right. So he wasn't changing the packaging. He wasn't nothing. I mean, it literally said Trader Joe's on the packaging. I mean, it would cost too much for him to repackage and everything. So, of course, he got sued. I'm looking this up already, and it does. Yeah. So this happened back in 2012. So yeah, it was early 2010s. And the owner of Trader Joe's sued him and won. I mean, at first they dismissed the case for whatever weird reason in Canada. They dismissed it, but on appeal they brought it back, and yeah, they made him close his store. But very similar, almost identical. I mean, parallels this Crumbl thing. It's just the reason. The good news is that Crumbl is very trendy right now, very TikTok-ish, let's just say it, and it's all over TikTok and social media. So the good news is that although people may criticize social media and everything, I mean, yeah, maybe, but at the same time, it brings awareness to stuff like this, So something that is very, very hot on TikTok, like Crumbl, somebody picks up on that trend and says, "Hey, I'm going to sell this in Australia." Believe me, I don't know how many times everybody in El Paso has been wanting to put a Trader Joe's here. Doesn't mean I can just open up a little grocery store and buy all the Trader Joe's and resell it. You just can't do that. Isn't even
Trader
domestically.
Joe's owned by a German company? Is it bought by Lidl or something? Is that his
I don't
partner?
know.
Is that their partner?
I don't know. It got started from a guy in Stanford University, so I know that for sure. But I don't know who.
It was to compete against Whole Foods because Whole Foods was so expensive.
No, Trader Joe's was actually born by someone in German.
Yeah, but was he not from Stanford University?
No, he was from Bremen, which is where my dad's from, by the way.
Oh, nice. Interesting fact.
1950, but this was 1950, and he's the owner of Trader Joe's and Aldi.
Okay, I stand corrected then.
Aldi and Trader Joe's, have a correlation. And Aldi actually here, that's crazy. Mm-hmm. It's a good supermarket, but I think it's not one of the best, which is crazy because Trader Joe's seems to be like one of the best in America, I love Aldi. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying anything bad, but I don't really shop there. So there's lots here. Anyways, that's just a little fun fact that Aldi and Trader Joe's are together. I hope El Paso should get a Trader Joe's.
So the guy that started it, Joe, his name is Joe Columbia. Oh my God, they're going to kill me on this. But anyway, he started it in 1967, and he sold it to Theo Albrecht, the co-founder of Aldi supermarket chain. So yes.
I see. So they combined. Yeah, I knew something about the combining, but okay, that's cool. Cool fact for you guys. Anywho, that's really our last story of the Crumbl cookie saga, which is kind of a fun thing, you know. If you that's something you can definitely bring up at your kitchen table, I feel like. But I do have a fun fact for you, kind of going hand in hand with our last article, which is, could you guess what the leading countries in exports of candy sweets are? So candy sweets, that's exactly what it says.
So ask your question again. Which country do they come from?
Yes. Leading exporters of candy sweets. Basically just candy.
Interesting. It's either Belgium or Canada.
Canada's not even in the... Canada's not even in the top.
Correct. So is it Belgium?
It's in there, but it's not the top.
Oh, boy.
Well, the 5 leading ones, let's just say the 5 leading ones. Is this in order? Let's just make sure that we're in order here. Oh, yeah, it is in order. Okay. So the first one is actually Germany, which I don't know if you know, but Haribo, Kinder Chocolate.
Right.
Those are all German, and those are the best.
Right.
So there you go. That's that. China is the second. Mexico is the third. Fourth is Spain. And you have 1 point, but still a loss. 5 is Belgium. Anyways, I don't even see Canada. Oh, Canada's 10th. Okay. So Canada is at 515.
You have a lot of, like in Canada,
million.
what I was thinking is the maple syrups and the maple candies.
Ooh, okay.
The maple candies. You also have Cadbury that's up there that you see at Easter time with the Cadbury eggs and Cadbury chocolates. And there's a lot of other candies that are manufactured there.
Belgium, I think of waffles.
Taffy.
Yum. Well, anyways, I'm getting hungry now.
Chocolates. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Germany too. I mean, that's the crazy, but that's why you just can't step outside, so you don't eat any of that. Mm-hmm. Here at Starbucks, fun fact, they have literal like cakes, like chocolate cake, like a big one, and like a strawberry big cake, like literally eat there for lunch. So weird. But yeah, fun fact. I have so many fun facts for you guys, but there's no time.
On that fun fact and sweets and all that, and the Crumbl situation. After my vacation, I think I'm going to import a bunch of pastéis de nata from Portugal, because those are
del natas,
amazing desserts in the world.
Pastel del nata, yes, they're so
pastéis
good.
de nata, say it right.
They're so good. We actually have them a lot here. If you go to bakeries here, they have them a lot actually. But I did have some of that in when I went to Portugal. Yeah.
Yeah. So
those are so good.
Coming soon to a store near you in America.
That's a good one. That's a really good one. All right, guys. Well, for that, we're going to end our show, and we hope to see you next week. Stay tuned for what's coming, because we have lots in store. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much for joining us. SimplyTrade is brought to you by the generous contributions of Global Training Center. You can follow the show and GTC on LinkedIn or Twitter and other social networks. Make sure you check out the show notes in the description for a full rundown of today's show with all the important links. Also, make sure that you share this with a friend and subscribe on your favorite streaming platform. We really like hearing from you. If you enjoyed the show, make sure to rate and review wherever you listen to this podcast. If you or someone you know would like to be a guest in the show, or would like to sponsor SimplyTrade, or suggest any topic you would like for us to discuss, please contact us via email at simplytrade@globaltrainingcenter.com, or you can DM us on Twitter at SimplyTradePod. Thank you again for the privilege of your time. Happy trading. SimplyTrade is not a law firm or an advisor. The topics and discussions conducted by SimplyTrade hosts and guests should not be considered and is not intended to substitute legal advice. You should seek appropriate counsel for your own situations. These conversations and information are directed towards listeners in the United States for informational, educational, and entertainment purposes only and should not be substituted for legal advice. No listener or viewer of this podcast should act or refrain from acting on the basis of information on this podcast without first seeking legal advice from counsel. Information on this podcast may not be up to date depending on the time of publishing and the time of viewership. The content of this posting is provided as is. No representations are made that the content is error-free. The views expressed in or through this podcast are those of the individual speakers, not those of their respective employers or Global Training Center as a whole. All liability with respect to actions taken or not taken based on the contents of this podcast are hereby expressly disclaimed.